Hi, this is Mrs. Kidman, and I am so excited to be talking to you about how we're going to factor simple trinomials. So remember, a trinomial is a term that has three parts, right? A lot of the trinomials that we are going to be working with and seeing in this video are going to be ones that are x squared plus 6x plus 8, something like this. They have these three unique terms. Notice how each term is in descending order. All of the trinomials that we're looking at are going to be to the square power. And notice how there's no term here. Now, we will be discussing what happens when we have a term there, but in this video, we are just going to talk about these simple trinomials. So when we factor these simple trinomials, they actually follow this really cool pattern. So when we are following this cool pattern, what's going to end up happening is anything that's x squared plus bx plus c, so b and c can be any term. What's going to end up happening when we factor these is actually that we're going to see this cool pattern. This is going to end up equaling something that's like x plus p times x plus q. That's what it's going to end up being. And what those p and q do is they follow a really unique pattern. P times q is going to equal our c value here, and p plus q is actually going to equal our b value. So what we're doing when we're factoring is we're actually going to look for this pattern. We're going to be given this side of our equation, our b and our c, and I want to figure out what p and q will add to get my b and multiply to get my c. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to set up this little x here. Now let's take a look at this first example. So factor x squared plus 10x plus 16. So this is my b and this is my c in this case. Now, I want to find two numbers that add to 10 and multiply to get 16. And the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to start by drawing this x. This is called the x factoring method. What's going to happen is in the top of my x, I'm going to write down my c value, or what numbers I want to multiply to. So I've got my 16 up here, I've got my b value, or what numbers I'm trying to add to down here. So c is right here, b is right here. Now I want to come up with two numbers, one to go on either side, that multiply to get 16 and add to get 10. The way that I'm going to do that is I want to look at what are the factors of 16. Well, I've got 1 and 16, I've got 2 and 8, I've got 4 and 4. Those are the factors. Those are all the positive factors. Now I want to see, do any of these add up to 10? 1 plus 16 is 17, no, but 2 plus 8 does. So what that means is I have a 2 here and an 8 here. So what my x tells me is 2 times 8 equals 16, and 2 plus 8 equals 10. So when we're factoring this, what we're going to end up doing is we are going to write two binomials that are multiplied together. Now an x squared tells me I'm going to have an x here and an x here, because x times x is x squared. Remember, that's our first term. Then this number over here is going to be whatever these are, follow with their sign in front. So this is a positive 2 and a positive 8. So I'm going to have a plus 2 and a plus 8. And that is how we're going to factor it. So what we want to do is we want to look and see, I'm going to multiply, I'm going to add, what are my signs? And I'm just going to plug that number with the sign in front of it in there. So let's try this next example. Now notice how this one has a negative here. It's going to be a little bit different. So remember, here's my x. I'm going to multiply two numbers to get 12, add two numbers to get negative 8. Well, what are my factors of 12? I've got 1 and 12. I've got 2 and 6. I've got 3 and 4. Now, none of those add to negative 8, but we only listed our positive factors here. Remember, we also have negative 1 and negative 12, negative 2 and negative 6, and negative 3 and negative 4. So which of these pairs here is going to equal, if we added them, negative 8? And it's going to be these negative ones here. So notice how I have a negative 2 and a negative 6 that I've written there, because those were the two factors of 12 that can multiply to get 12, but add to get negative 8. So then when we're writing our two binomials that we're multiplying together here, I have my x and my x because of our x squared, and then this number and the sign in front of it, minus 2, minus 6. So notice, remember, a negative times a negative is going to be that positive. And we can actually expand this out and see if it equals that same thing. We get x squared minus 2x minus 6x plus 12 minus 2x minus 6x is going to be that negative 8x. So this is exactly how it factors out. And we can check it by multiplying it out and see if we get that same thing. Now, a third example I want to try. In this first one, everything was positive. In the second one, our b was negative. And in this last one, we have a negative c. So now we want to expand this one, look at it the same way. So we're going to start by drawing our x. The two numbers we want to multiply to get negative 21, and we want to add two numbers to get 4. So what numbers multiply to get negative 21? Well, negative 1 and 21, negative 3 and 7, negative 7 and 3, and 21 and negative 21 and 1, right? Those are all of our factors there. So if I want two of them, so two of these factors, these all multiply to the top, but which ones add to give me a positive 4? That's right, it's going to be these ones. So here I write a negative 3 and a 7. So then as we factor that out, I get x, the number and the sign in front of it, minus 3, x, this is a positive 7, so x plus 7. And that is how we're going to factor those. So remember, every time what we're going to do, we're going to draw our x. I want to multiply to get my c value. I want to add to get my b value. And I want to factor my c and figure out what two numbers will multiply to get c and add to get b. That's what we want to figure out. So let's take a look at some of our examples here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video. I want you to, I'm not going to pause the video. You're going to pause the video. I want you to take a second to try out each of these examples. And then after you finish the first example, unpause the video, watch to see what happens. I'm going to go over it briefly. Then we're going to start the next problem and we're going to go through these examples. So let's first start with number 3. So we are going to look at w squared minus 4w plus 3. Remember to set up your x with what we multiply on top and what we add on the bottom. Go ahead and pause the video and work through it. Okay, hopefully you had a chance to look at that on your own. We filled it in. Remember, our 3 is what we multiply by. Our negative 4 is what we add to. After I listed out my factors of negative 3, I got negative 1 and negative 3 add together to get negative 4, but multiply to get 3. And so then I just take the number and the sign in front of it, and this factors down to not x's, whoops. This will factor down to a w minus 1 and a w minus 3, because w times w is w squared. Now take a second to pause the video, check out number 4. Okay, here's number 4. Remember, we multiply to get that 35, we add to get that negative 12. I listed out all my factors of 35. I found out that the one that'll work here is going to be this negative 5 and negative 7. So then when I wrote that, I wrote not my n's. I wrote n. I always forget that variable changes. N minus 5 times n minus 7. And that's what we get there. Now, I want you to pause the video, and I am going to finish these last 4 problems. Take a second, work on these 4 problems. Try to figure out how to split it up. When you've finished answering those 4 questions, unpause the video, check to see if your solutions match. Okay, hopefully you took the time to pause that video and finish solving these. With number 5 here, we split it up, so our 24 and our negative 14. I lifted all my factors, circled the one that added to negative 14, and I got x minus 2, x minus 12. With number 6, I did the same thing, moved my c here, moved my b there, figured out what factors of negative 15 added to 2, and I got negative 3 and 5. So our factored form is x minus 3 times x plus 5. Our y squared, number 7, this y squared plus 13y minus 30. Same process, you get y minus 2 times y plus 15. And then this last one, I always forget to change those variables. This last one here, we have v squared minus v minus 42. Oh, minus 42. I did this one wrong. Let's look at this one all together here. We're looking for a minus 42. We're looking at what are those factors. So here we are, this last one, multiply to get 42. add to get -1, -42. Those factors of -42 are going to be -1 and 42, -2 and 21. There's going to be a couple, let's see, it should divide by -3 and 14. We have a -6 and a 7. We have a -7 and a 6, a -14 and 3, a -21 and 2, and a -42 and 1. So the ones that add to -1 are going to be this -7 and -6, or -7 and 6. And so then our solution is not x, but v minus 7 times v plus 6. Now that is how you factor. We're going to use that x method. So remember, we multiply in the top, we add in the bottom. And that is how we would factor the polynomial when it's a simple polynomial where we don't have any number in front of our x squared or our w squared or our n squared. And that is how you would factor those simple trinomials.